welcome back. My name is India and I happen to read a lot, and today we are checking in. It is April. It's currently the 12th of April when I film this, and we are a quarter of the way through the year. Don't have a crisis about how time moves, all right? That was me before I press record on this video. But yes, it is that time of year. I love check-ins. I watch everybody's check-ins. I watch everybody's kind of wrap-ups of the year. What Brit Reads and Emma Sky's, two TikTokers that I follow, had just brought out their kind of quarterly wrap-ups, things like this. I have been waiting to do this. I've been excited to do this, but I've also not super been loving it because this year has not been great so far. I'm dubbing this year so far as underwhelming, unsatisfactory. We could be doing a lot better. Do you know what I mean? Emma and Brit also said in their videos as well that they were kind of feeling the same way, that they've not been loving the books that they've been reading. They've been DNFing a lot more. It's just not really been a great year, and that's how I've been feeling. I have my laptop here with loads of like stats and stuff because I'm not very good at, I should have written this all down, but I haven't. But this year, my average rating has been a 3.8, but I have DNF'd probably like 10 books this year. I've DNF'd about 10 books so far this year, and we are in April. I have a 3.8, which actually really isn't that bad. But I've had my first 1 star this year, about 10 DNFs. I didn't even complete my February TBR, and I scrapped my entire March TBR. It's just been a very bad reading year. I've read some amazing standout books. I will talk to you my favourite 3 books a little bit later in the video. But I have just been completely underwhelmed. I've been reading books from authors that I love that just haven't been hitting. Tessa Bailey's Dream Girl drama I didn't like. I wasn't bowled over by. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, oh my god, I love it so much. I read An Imperial Retinue by Josiah Bancroft, which I felt the same way. The Dead Cattail Assassins was kind of underwhelming considering how much I love P. Djeli Clark's work. And it's just been, and that's kind of summarizes the kind of reading that I have, is that nothing's been atrocious. It's just been mid or just meh. Do you know what I mean? I just haven't been loving what I'm reading, and I'm trying to figure out, one, I have let past India down. In December of 2024, I sat there and I said, I am not going to overwhelm myself with too many big TBRs. I want to go back to my roots and I want to pick from enjoyment. I'm going to reduce it because my reading has been taking a hit recently. And have I listened to her? No, I haven't. As I said, I didn't finish my February TBR and there was like 15 books on there. And I completely scrapped my March TBR. And while I do think April is more accessible, I know I'm not going to complete that. Let's be honest. So, I do think it's a mixture of basically what I'm trying to do too much and ignoring the fact that I said I was going to pick a new release of fantasy and murder mystery and a non-fiction and then leave it as that and then pick from my heart. I've not been doing that. And it's just been meh, right? And I think that's the best way to describe and explain what January to April has been like for me so far. I've also read the least amount of books that I have this year. So this year I have read 33 books so far. That's over 8,972 pages. But I looked at my quarterly check-in for 2023 and 2024. In 2024, I read 48 books. 48. And that was before I even attempted, because both in 2023 and 2024, I tried to read a book a day in August for my birthday month. 48 before that. I'm on 33. Now, I think 33 is good, but I know I can do better. But then also that is why I get into this issue where it's like, well, I can do better, I can read more, but I'm enjoying them. But then I think back on it and I'm like, I did really enjoy loads of those books. So I don't know. I think it's part I'm oversubscribing myself to so many different things. But also I get FOMO. And I want to read everything the minute it comes out straight away. And then if I don't, and a publisher has sent me a book for a release in August, and then I don't read it before or in August, I feel like I'm a failure. But anyway, it's been a meh year. It's not been great. I have a couple of things I'm going to discuss at the end of the video where we talk about what I plan on taking what I have learned and applying to the rest of the year. But we need to change something. It's not been good. That being said, let's talk about my 3 favourite books so far this year. So when I pick my favourite books, I tend to look less at the actual ratings, which I know sounds really stupid and ironic. But what I like to do is I like to sit down And I like to think to myself, if someone were to come up and ask me, have you read anything good recently? And then think to myself, what's the first thing that comes into my brain? What's the first thing? And I have 3 books that come into my brain. 2 of them are standalones. 1 of them is the final book in a trilogy. Here they are. Do you like? I like doing those things for editing me where I go, here they are. And then editing me goes in and goes, I see you, babe. Do you know what I mean? Anyway. But here they are. So in 3rd place, my favourite book so far this year, obviously subject to change because we have many, many months ahead of us, but it's A Sweet Sting of Salt by Rose Sutherland, which is a queer retelling of The Selkie Wife. This was just so much fun. It was so good. Loved the setting. I actually don't know The Selkie Wife tale, which is probably why I enjoyed it even more. I read this as the first book in my Goodreads Fantasy Longlist Challenge. More on that later, but link in the video. And yeah, just really good. 2nd place is the final book in the Fallen Gods trilogy, which is Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner, so I can't say too much about that, but I loved it. I cried over it. I do think that I won as a fan. I have done 2 podcast episodes. There may potentially be another one in the pipeline, who knows. For the Hidden Bookcase, where we discuss Godkiller and Sunbringer. I go on like a rant about how much I hate one specific character and then what I want to happen in the final book. And I feel like out of all of us, I was the one that looked out the best, you know? And then finally, my favourite one so far this year was the 5th book that I read this year. It was Hungerstone, a retelling of Carmilla set in the Industrial Revolution in the UK, specifically in England. I just really enjoyed it. I thought the writing was great. I thought the characters were great. I loved everything about it. It was just so much fun, and I read it in 2 days. I inhaled it. It was so, so, so good. So we've got a bit of a theme, really. We've got sapphic retellings and European-esque fantasies vibe going on. So maybe that is kind of what the vibe of the year is. Lesbians and fantasy. Maybe that's what the year has in store for us. But those are my favourite 3 books. That Hungerstone I planned on reading anyway because the publishers sent it to me. Same with Faithbreaker, but also I wanted to read Faithbreaker regardless of whether it was sent to me or not because I needed to know how that ended. But A Sweet Sting of Salt was one that came out of nowhere. I'd never heard of it prior to deciding to do the Goodreads challenge. So that was a really good thing that came out of nowhere, which was really exciting. But yeah, those are my 3 books so far for the year. Moving on, I need to update you on my challenges. So first up, my Goodreads challenge. So I have 2 Goodreads challenges. This is the Goodreads, just like the overall, I call it the Goodreads challenge because I've done it on Goodreads. I can't remember in my wrap up whether I just said how many books I want to read in a year, but the books I said I wanted to read in a year. So I set myself the goal in December that I wanted to read 75 books because I was like, I want to go back to my roots. I want to read more classic murder mysteries. I want to read chunky fantasies. I want to try some non-fiction. Those are going to take longer to read, so let's go to 75. And I've not been doing that. I've already said it, but sorry, past India, I've really dropped the fucking ball. I really dropped the ball. But yes, so far, my goal is 75. I have read 33, so I'm 44% of the way to completing my goal. I did think I was going to be further ahead. I'll be completely honest. I did think I was going to be further ahead. 75 is obviously the goal. I would love to hit 100. I always, I would love to hit 100, but we'll see. I'm actually not even sure whether we will get to 100 this year. I've been tallying everything up, and I think I will only get to 75 in the autumn, and I don't think I'll be able to get 100 books, but we'll see. But in regards to 75, I'm doing a great job. I'm on track. I'm 13 books ahead of schedule, according to Goodreads. We're doing fine. Then we have my sequel challenge. So the sequel challenge is to read 12 books from ongoing series. I like to read one a month. I think if I tried to read any more, it wouldn't help this kind of meh feeling because then I would feel pressured. In regards to how I'm doing so far, I actually haven't checked this. I'm doing really, really well on this. I'm already halfway through. And the sequels are the ones that I normally don't do as well on. I'm normally rushing my sequels at the end of the year, but I've done 7 so far. I have read, obviously, Faithbreaker, which I gave 5 stars to. I read The Little Sparrow Murders by Seishio Kamizo, which I gave 4 stars to. I read Mockingjay earlier this year, which I gave 4.5 stars to. And then, obviously, I went on to read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I did enough. And Sunrise on the Reaping, which I ended up giving 4 stars to. I also read Dream Girl Drama, which was 3.5, a bit of an underwhelming book. I read How to Seal Your Fates, which was the second book in the Castle Knoll Files, which I gave 4.5 stars. I also read Delicious in Dungeon Volume 5 and Free Run Beyond Journey's End Volume 6, which were both 4 stars. I'm currently watching the Free Run anime. It's so fucking good. I've teared up multiple times. So yeah, I'm doing well. That is a very on-track challenge. I feel very good about it. It does help that a lot of it is manga as well, though I have not been reading as much manga as I normally do. Then we move on to my really fun 25 and 25. Ooh. So I do it every year, and 25 and 25 is a challenge that loads of people have been doing, where you just select 25 books you want to read in 2025. My friend Libby, I think, is like halfway through her goal. She's read loads. Of those books. I, on the other hand, have read 3. I've done 3. And one of them was a DNF. So I DNF'd the Foxhole Court, but I count that as like I read it. I don't have to read it all the way through, but I got halfway through it or something like that. So I DNF'd the Foxhole Court. Then I read An Imperial Retinue, which I gave 3 stars. And then Murder in the Family, which I gave 4 stars. The Tainted Cup is on my list for later this month because we're reading it for book group, so that will be 4. I never do well with these things. I really need to get back into it because I'm not doing great. Not doing great at all. Then in regards to genre, so as you know, at the end of my reading goal, I was like, I'm going to read more non-fiction, focus on chunky fantasies and classic murder mysteries, and then every once in a while, make sure I'm reading some new releases and things like that. I would say on the new release front, smashing it out of the park. In January, I read obviously Hungerstone, Dream Girl Drama, I read The Abandoners. Then in February, it was Faithbreaker, How to Seal Your Own Fate, Fair Play, and Open Heaven, and then Dark Like Thunder, but I did DNF it. In March, I read Bookish, just Bookish. And then in April, I'm reading Mythica and Murder in the House of Amari. In regards to non-fiction, I think I've been doing okay because I read 1 non-fiction in January, 1 in March, and then I'm not doing great. I was trying to do 1 a month. I didn't read 1 in February. And then for fantasy, like my chunky core fantasy, I read City of Last Chances in January, which was really, really good. And then obviously there was Faithbreaker in February. But I didn't really go for anything chunky or meaty in March. But anyway, I've not been reading that much. And then in terms of classic murder mystery, I've been doing a lot of like, I read The Little Sparrow Murders, obviously in January. But then I did a lot of like modern murder mysteries. So How to See Your Own Fate and Fair Play are modern murder mysteries. Though Fair Play has like a classic murder mystery twist. And then I read Murder in the Family in March, which is a very modern epistolary murder mystery. So reading Sad Cypress this month will be it. So I've been not really following the vibe of what I set my goal to do, which is not ideal. I want to get back into doing that. But I have also started, I wanted to read all the Little Black Classics. I want to do like a video with the Little Black Classics where I go, oh, these are the ones that are worth your time. Since then I've read 3, and one of them was really good, Mrs. Rosie and the Priest. As Kingfishers Catch Fire, whatever, was shit. And then the other one is the one that I'm doing currently at the moment, which really fits in as well to the kind of chunky fantasy goal that I've got going on for this year anyway, which is I'm trying to read all the books in the Goodreads fantasy long list for 2024. I've read 2 of them so far, which was A Sweet Sting of Salt and The Dead Cattail Assassins. My next 2 are The Tainted Cup and Voyage of the Damned, followed by The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. So that kind of fits in with that whole I want to go and read chunky, epic fantasy that I used to read when I was younger. So that kind of helps. And I've been doing very well on that. I'm kind of trying to read 2 a month-ish. Emphasis on ish, because The Bright Sword is like nearly 600 pages, I think. But that's the kind of vibe that we're going for. But overall, the challenge is like I'm doing okay. I'm on track. I'm way over being on track for my Goodreads. I'm done over half of my sequels. 25 and 25 needs work, I will be honest. So I am going to look into that. And then finally, we've got next steps. So the big next step for me is I think I'm going to cull my TBRs. I love filming TBRs. I do like having a look at what I'm doing, but I do think it's time to actually be honest with myself and go, you're not reading these, and stop doing things by the book and being like, cool, well, the next thing I must read is this. I think I'm literally just going to go to the shelf and go, I do want to continue with one new release, with one non-fiction, but I also want to read a classic murder mystery. I want to go back to reading a chunky fantasy. Now, I know that Voyage of the Damned is a book that will be on my list next month because it is part of my Goodreads reading challenge. And I know that The Bright Sword is next, so that'd be quite easy. But then the rest of what I read is just going to be vibes only. And also I'd like to read a 25 and 25 as well. So I want to be able to keep my TBRs, but I also think I just need to start going from the heart like I originally was going to. I think I signed up for a lot of things in the first quarter of the year that kind of meant that I couldn't really dedicate that amount of reading time. So I think going into May is now, especially since I didn't complete February and I scrapped everything in March, it's a sign that my brain just needs something else. So the goal for May will be one non-fiction, one fantasy, one murder mystery, preferably a classic, and one new release. And then one of my 25 and 25 will fit in those categories, but just keeping an eye on my 25 and 25 because it's looking dicey. It's looking dicey. All of my friends are high flying and I'm like, wait for me, I've only read 3. I feel like I'm going to get to the end of the year this year and be like, this has not been a good year for me. This has been a shit year for me for reading. But this is the time to change it. Just right now, I'm feeling very underwhelmed. Very underwhelmed. That should be the tagline of this YouTube video.